Everybody, welcome to the Earned Value Analysis Practice Exam Question Review. It's great that you're digging into your exam revision. I just want to reiterate, those students who are in last week's tutorial would know, but please ensure that along with this practice exam, you also go through the tutorial questions. So for example, for this particular topic, very important that you also go through the tutorial questions, go through the responses and the calculations that we did in class as part of your exam revision. This is not the only type of question that you may be getting. It's just one of. So let's dive in. We'll get started with the question. So you are managing the following project where your company builds high-end luxury water features. You are required to design and construct 2 water features a month for a year. And in brackets, I've just popped 12 months there, just for the avoidance of any doubt. Each water feature costs $100 to design and build, and your project is planned to last 12 months. We are currently in month 10 of the project's timeline. You have built 20 water features, and your CPI is 0.9091. So before we jump in, what we're actually going to do is just go through, and I want you to pretend that this is an exam question, that these are exam settings when you approach this. So you've got your notes ready because it is open book, and this is the question. I want you to go through, what are we highlighting, what are we looking at? So is the fact that they are luxury water features, is that important? Not particularly. No, we can kind of, we don't need to really worry about that. What about two water features a month for a year? Is that important? Yes. So we're going to highlight that. What about each water feature costs $100? Yes. Bang. Project is planned to last 12 months. Also important. Then we're going to highlight some information about where the project's at the moment. So that's sort of the information background to the project. Now we're going to have a look at the information that tells us where we are in the project. So we are in month 10, and we know that that's of 12 months. And we have built 20 water features, and we know what our CPI is. So that's where I want you to start when you get one of these questions. Go through, highlight the key options, even write them down on a piece of paper or on a different Word document. Distill the question. The question is going to always contain sort of a large paragraph like this of fluff, and it's your job to distill the key items that we can actually use in our calculations. In some particular tricky questions, there might be a bit of information thrown in that isn't actually relevant. For the exam, though, we will be not trying to trip you up like that, but please be aware that in other questions there may be information that isn't always relevant. So for example here, luxury water features, it's not relevant. Then we've got the questions. So question 1, how is the project performing? Question 2, what is the actual cost of the project right now? And question 3, senior management wants you to report the percentage of the project which is complete. What are you reporting? So we have 3 questions here, and obviously to get full marks or close to full marks, we need to answer all 3. So please make sure you are taking note of the fact there are 3 sub-questions and you are answering all 3. If you don't at least attempt all 3, you don't have a high chance of getting those high grades. Feel free to start with the one that you feel most comfortable with, but as a general rule for numerical exam questions, you want to start from 1 and work your way down, because you may need the answers from 1 or 2 in 3. So let's dive in. Just a more professional version of the highlighting, so you don't all have to deal with the shocking scribbles that we have. Let's jump. Right, so question 1, how is the project performing? If you have not attempted this question already, please pause this video and go and attempt it. It might seem easy to watch the video and then think that you'll learn backwards. However, in the exam, you're not going to have a video of mine to watch that shows you how to answer the question. So you really do need to give yourself an idea of where you are realistically at with your exam revision and how much you've retained, how many weeks you may have skipped accidentally or on purpose with work, etc. So pause, give the question a go, and then come back. So we know that CPI equals 0.9091. Now the first thing obviously that you need to understand is what CPI is, and we know that CPI is defined by the PMBOK guide as a measure of cost efficiency on a project. It is realistically, it's the ratio of earned value to actual cost, so that's the EV versus the AC, and the CPI is equal to the earned value divided by the actual cost. So we have an equation. I'm going to do a rough little scribble that, don't worry, we will then remove so that you're not all stuck with it. So we know CPI, gosh, I look like a 2-year-old has written this, equals EV, there we go, whoop, over AC. Lovely. Now, again, I've written on there, what does this tell us? Those of you who have been coming to class will know very quickly what we're looking at is the CPI in relation to the value of 1. So 1 is the key value here. So we are looking at a CPI equal or greater than 1 indicates a favourable condition, and a value of less than 1, whoop, there we go, indicates an unfavourable condition. So for example, if your calculation shows a CPI of say 0.9, which is very roughly what we've got here, what that actually translates to is that 0.9, so 90 cents for every $1 spent to date on your project is what your project is recognizing. So I'll say that again. So if your CPI is 0.9, what we do is we add a little dollar sign in front, and so we know that your project is recognizing 90 cents for every $1 spent to date on your project. Now obviously we don't want that. You know, it's like a dodgy exchange rate. What we want is the project to recognize more value for every $1 spent to date on your project. So assuming that your CPI efficiency remains the same throughout the project and throughout the remainder of your work, your project, if it was a 0.9, will be over budget. Why? Because you're really only getting 90 cents of value for every $1 spent. In contrast, say your CPI was 1.50. Gosh, this is shocking stuff. Again, we put the little dollar sign in front, whoop, and we know that the project is then recognizing $1.50 for every $1 spent. That's great. You're getting $1.50 value out of $1. Unreal work. Hopefully that helps you, just a little reminder, of CPI. And also a good idea is to have a little refresh on what SPI means. Again, SPI on the PMBOK guide is defined as a measure of schedule efficiency on a project. So it's the ratio of earned value to planned value. So we've got S, and this isn't what the question's asked, but you may get a question about this in an exam, whoop, equals EV, and please consult your lecture notes because they're a lot neater than this, over planned value. So an SPI of equal or greater than 1 indicates a favourable condition, and a value of less than 1 indicates an unfavourable condition. So again, we've just got to remember, less than 1, greater than 1, yeehaw. So for example, if we get an SPI of 1.1, that translates to our project recognising $1.10 for every $1 spent to date on our project, and assuming that the SPI efficiency remains throughout the remainder of your work, your project will finish ahead of schedule because we are getting more done in that specific amount of time and for that specific money than originally planned. So again, we're not looking at SPI right now, but it's important to have a little refresher because that is something that may be in your exam. All right, so let's move on back to the CPI. So CPI 0.9091. What does this tell us? And a great example. So if this was your exam, remember we want to show working to show the marker how we got there. So I would actually write out the CPI is 0.9091. So put in the key facts. You wouldn't have to write what does this tell us, but I would pop that there and then say as the CPI is less than 1, we know we are not getting enough value for each dollar that we put into the project, aka the project is over budget. So you could then go into how we are getting 90 cents approximately or 91 cents approximately for every dollar spent on the project, or you may leave it at this. It really depends on how many points and what percentage the question is worth, how much detail you go into. But that is how the project is performing based on the CPI factor. Then if we jump in, so we got a big but, exclamation mark. We'll just go, whoa, but, outrageous. Are we ahead of schedule or behind schedule? So we haven't just been asked, if the question was, what does the CPI tell us? That original answer here, completely sufficient. It would be tick, tick, full marks. However, we've been asked how the project is performing. So we haven't just been asked about how we're going budget-wise. How is the project performing? We know two really important factors, dollar, time. That's what people care about. So let's go for that high distinction. Are we ahead of schedule or behind schedule? So we've done a little mini part A and a mini part B. Are we ahead of schedule or behind schedule? Again, pause. Please attempt this yourself. It's very easy to go, oh yeah, that makes sense when I say it, but you need to have attempted it yourself first because I'm not there in the exam with you. Are we ahead of schedule or behind schedule? Who can tell me what formula are we using? Pause, regroup when you're ready. So I'm asking you some questions here if you need a little hint. How many fountains have we built? How many fountains are we meant to have built at this point in time? And this is where we look at our highlighted green things. So how many fountains have we built? Well, we know that. How many fountains are we meant to have built? Well, I'm not sure. We're going to have to calculate that. So we know that we are currently in month 10. Are we going to account for month 10? No, because we don't know within that month whether the two fountains are always meant to be built, on the last day, on the 30th or on the 29th, or if they're equal, each one takes 2 weeks. We don't know. We do not know. We just know that it's 2 water features a month. So we're in month 10, but for the purposes of calculation, we're going to look at the previous month because we need a completed month to do our calculations for, because we don't have information about how many weeks. So if this particular question said it's 2 water features a month at 2 weeks each, we could then, and we were told that we were in month 10 and we were 2 weeks in, that would be a different story. However, we don't know that, so we're going to look at month 9. We know 2 water features a month and we're at month 9. So we've got 20 fountains we have built. How many are we meant to have built? 18. Why? Because it's 2 fountains per month. We've done 9 months. 2 times 9 equals 18. Therefore, the project is ahead of schedule. So, unfortunately, we are over budget. Over budget gets a sad face. But we are ahead of schedule. That gets us a little happy face. And then a high distinction answer would conclude something like, How is the project performing? Well, the CPI, blah, 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 it tells us that the project is over budget. However, the project is also ahead of schedule. So we are over budget, but we are ahead of schedule. If, however, the project was, say, over budget and behind schedule, it would be a very dire situation. However, because we're over budget and ahead of schedule, you might put something in there about how it's potentially, you know, not too bad of a situation. Yeah, so that's that question. All right, so now we're going to jump into question 2. What is the actual cost of the project right now? And we know the actual cost is, in all of our equations, the capital AC. For this type of question in your exam notes, I would actually have all of the abbreviations written out at the top of your notes, followed by what they actually mean, because it's tricky in an exam sometimes with stress to think about these things. So, what is the actual cost of the project right now? What are we looking for? AC. Then I would be going through what formula can we use with the information that we have. And again, we know CPI. We can calculate the EV. What's the EV? That's our earned value. So if we can tick this off and we can tick this off, then we can rearrange for AC and we will be good to go. So please, again, if you haven't already attempted this question, pause, come back to it. Don't just watch and take notes. Give it a go first. So we know CPI is that from the top of the question. AC is question mark. That's what we're trying to look at. And EV, let's calculate that. Oh, I'm just going to... Oh, I can't erase that. Okay, cool. Well, we'll just leave that lovely green stripe. Oh, there we go. We can erase it. There we go. All right. So EV, so earned value is 20 fountains. Why 20? Because that's how many we've built. And how much do they cost? $100 each. So our EV is $2,000, and that is 20 times 100. Then we're going to pop everything into the equation. So we know CPI equals EV over AC. We have CPI equals 0.9091. And we have EV equals $2,000. Popping everything in, we get 0.9091 equals 2,000 divided by AC. Now, taking you back to your math days, what do we need to do? We need to move AC onto the other side of the equation. How are we going to do that? Well, this is currently divide. So what's the opposite of divide? Multiply. So we're going to multiply AC, which is just what I've written here for you. So we get AC 0.9091 equals 2,000. So we've removed AC from this side, and now it's on this side. Now what do we have to get rid of? Our CPI friend. What do we need to do? We need to move it onto this side of the equation. How are we going to do that? Well, it's currently multiplied by AC, so what's the opposite? We are going to do a little, whoops, that is the worst divide sign I've ever seen. All right, so we've divided both sides by the CPI value. So we have AC equals 2199.97. For the purposes of this question, you don't need to be going to that many decimal places. I'm very happy for you to round on up. And then, of course, do we leave it like this? No, high distinction. We want to conclude the actual cost of the project right now is $2,200. All right, question 3. We are getting there. Good work, guys. So, senior management wants you to report the percentage of the project which is complete. What are you reporting? Again, what are we going to do? Pause it. We're going to give it a go ourselves. We're going to go over our notes. We're going to review the lecture slides, and then we're going to come back. So, I'm going to use this formula. Percentage complete, woo, wow, equals EV over BAC times by 100%. What's BAC? Budget at completion. What's EV? Earned value. And this is why I said at the very beginning, it's a good idea to start from question 1 and work down, because here we already know what EV is. Whoa, it is $2,000. Now that should actually have a unit there. Just for accuracy purposes, always put the units in just so that you are aware, so please ignore that. So we've got EV over BAC. We want to make sure it's a percentage, so we're timesing it by 100%. What is our budget at completion? Well, 2 fountains a month. It's a 12-month project. They're $100 a fountain. This is our budget at completion. So then we're going to use that information. Percentage complete equals 2,000 over 2,400 times by 100 equals 83%. And again, if we're going for that high distinction response, let's make it super easy for the marker. We're going to say the percentage, so we're reporting to senior management. So if you are a grad or you are early on in your career and senior management wants you to report, are you just going to give them a sticky note that says 83% and slap it on their desk? No. You are going to say, at least a nice sentence, the percentage of the project which is complete is 83% for the luxury water features project or something like that. So one sentence, it doesn't need to be a paragraph, but don't just slap 83% on a sticky note, and the same with your exam responses. Make sure that you finish it off with that lovely conclusion for that high distinction response. That is our earned value analysis practice question video. Hope this was helpful. And again, please make sure that you look at your tutorial questions as well. And let me know if there's any other topics that you would like me to go through before your exam. All right, good luck everyone.